You know the expression, ignorance is bliss? There are very few moments in your adult life where you can truly enjoy something without any context or background on that thing. For example, I made a delicious dinner for some friends the other day, and they couldn't get enough of it. Little did they know where I actually got the ingredients from. And for their own good, I wasn't going to tell them.
But I believe we had an understanding.
But I wasn't so fortunate when I saw the remake of The Nightmare on Elm Street. When I left the theaters, I was happy and excited to tell all my high school friends about it. The reason why is because I grew up around a lot of religious people that were okay with R-rated movies as long as it didn't swear too much or have any nudity in it. And color me surprised, this movie had neither. I mean, it had some swearing, but it really wasn't that much. And I could not have been more eager to tell everyone about it. So I was spreading the word that this movie should be viewed by everyone. Even the religious types who bothered the fuck out of me with their standards. You can bet your bottom dollar that I watched those movies back then that bothered them just like I do now. But I had a friend who was a horror head like myself who said she hated the movie. She gave some reasons like that wasn't Freddy or that was not a Nightmare on Elm Street film, and all these criticisms just went over my head. Because my dumbass had never seen the original. So I brushed off all of her critiques and thought she was just being too picky. About a decade later, the original was chosen in one of the Spooktober lists that me and my siblings do for every Halloween, where we pick 31 movies to watch in 31 days over the month of October. And I was watching it, my ignorance was ripped away, and all I wanted to do was... Now, don't get me wrong, I love Jackie Earle Haley. I was one of the few people that actually really liked Watchmen, no matter how many blue dicks were on the screen. Don't know why that was my first thought, but let's move on. His portrayal of Rorschach made me want that man to have as much success in movies as possible. And of course, his portrayal as Freddy Krueger would be different. It would be a stupid idea if he tried to copy the original portrayal. So it doesn't bother me in the slightest that he did it differently. Here's the thing about remaking a movie. Obviously, the original has to be popular enough in order for it to be even considered to be remade. That's the whole point of trying to remake it, is because you want to cash in on a new audience appreciating an older story, essentially. But there is a huge difference between paying homage to the original movie and not just remaking the same damn thing, only shittier. Unfortunately for the lazy-ass people who wrote this movie, they didn't get the memo, and they copied most of the main scares from the original, which just seems lazy, and it's infuriating because Freddy is a villain who has limitless power. You can do anything with him, and you chose to rehash old scares and death scenes? You can pay homage to the original, but there is a certain line between giving tribute and straight up copying what came before. But enough of my intro, let's watch A Nightmare on Elm Street, 1984. The movie introduces us to our main villain Freddy by showing us how he made his signature weapon. Wow, our little green friends really understood the importance of this thing.
This is God.
And our hero is chasing his victim. The villain is chasing a poor girl in a nightmare, and she wakes up in terror. I've had worse nightmares. But our innocent girl realizes that her nightie is sliced up, giving us, the audience, a clue that these dreams are no joke. We also get introduced to the jump rope song, and it just kind of gets skimmed over, and you're like, go on. But they don't, so whatever. we get an asshole guy that looks like a classic greaser hitting on our main girl, who I'll just call her the dream girl, and her backfire is amazing. But she's talking to her friends about her dream, and they give her some half answers that kind of imply she's not the only one getting them. And she asks her friend and her friend's boyfriend, played by everyone's favorite pirate, to spend the night. And Johnny is so elaborate in the lie that he tells his parents so that he could actually spend the night at his house, at this house, is insane. Oh, the good old days when parents either wanted to believe that you were a good kid or stopped caring and believed whatever bullshit you told them. I mean, sometimes I'm not sure which side my parents lean towards. I'm sure parents go through both, but whatever. Our surprise greaser returns to quote-unquote make up for his earlier lewd remarks toward the dream girl, and just like that, our dream girl is like putty in his hands. You know, I blame movies for setting weird-ass expectations when it comes to dating. Oh, and get this, their convo after bumping uglies tells us that this was a first-time thing. Oh, if life was like a movie. But cue a shocking moment, and the greaser reveals that he has also been having nightmares lately. Okay, I gotta pause the movie and comment on the music. It's phenomenal. This creepy soundtrack is timeless. Now downstairs, our dream girl's best friend is having a nightmare, and Freddy is stretching through the walls, and the idiots who did the remake thought it would be a good idea to copy this scene with terrible CGI. Who the hell thought this would be better than this? Our dream girl is attacked by Freddy, and these scenes perfectly portray who our villain is.
Watch this.
Freddy absolutely revels in playing with his victims like a cat with pretty much anything it sees. Seriously, cats are literal monsters to their prey. Freddy knows he can do anything and everything in the dream world, and he lives it up. Honestly, who wouldn't? I mean, who would play with people like they're toys? I mean, that's just cruel or whatever. So our dream girl is getting sliced up and thrown all over the room, and our greaser guy is just helpless to do anything about it. And the scene is absolutely jaw-dropping. And of course, it's done amazingly well, and the remake pales in comparison. In the original, the girl gets cut and is bleeding and screaming for help, and the horror and helplessness of the guy in the room pierces you like one of Freddy's knives. In the remake, she gets thrown around asleep and then gets the signature Freddy cut and then dies. Really? Where's the long-lasting horror? The feel of dread that makes you wish it would stop. The remake feels cheap in comparison. Our couple downstairs naturally call the police when they bust into the room and see their dead friend and the open window, and it definitely implies that the greaser just bolted out of it. Remember, kids, first rule of horror movies, never have sex or you'll be the first to go. What's amazing is the police chief or head detective is the same guy who played the same role in my review on the original Black Christmas. Turns out he is the father of our new main girl, which is refreshing. I know other movies have done this, but it's nice that the script smoothly jumps from character to character, like it's aware that what Freddy is doing is a shared experience. The remake does that too, but I mean, who cares at this point? So the police father is asking the main girl new questions, and everyone is thinking the greaser guy did it. The next day comes, and our main girl is walking to school, and it seems like she's being followed.
Hello? Hello?
Although not as creepy as that. And the greaser grabs her and pulls her into the bushes to convince her of his innocence. Not the best idea, but this guy doesn't really have a lot of options. but her cop dad was using her as bait so they could catch the kid before he runs away. Smart idea, but how would the cops know he would try to find her? I mean, he's on the run. Everyone knows no one saw him kill the girl, so the thought of him tying up loose ends isn't that believable. My best bet is he would hide around his house until he could get in and get clothes, cash, whatever, and lay low as long as he can. He may not be the smartest guy, but he is smart enough to know that he will never be able to prove his innocence. We then jump to class time, and holy shit, the old bat from Insidious is the teacher?
Leave this body now!
I guess I'm tardy to the party on knowing she's like the original horror girl. Our new main girl is having a nightmare about her most recently killed friend in a body bag that's see-through. Why would that ever be a thing? I mean, who the hell knows, but it's nice and creepy, so it's in the remake. What are we, like 25 minutes in, and that's 3 reused scares? But it's a dream scene, and our Freddy loves to just dick around. And the whole dream just proves that Freddy can create mazes to literally play cat and mouse. Main girl decides to take a bath, and we get the classic bathtub scene, and of course, that gets copied in the remake. In the original, Nancy gets sucked into a large body of water and keeps sinking. In the remake, she just walks into another location. Oh, and don't worry, they do the water scare for another character in the remake, so it's copying on 2 levels. I mean, this is a good example of the dread and helplessness you feel in the first movie, but in the remake, it's more of a mystery for the characters to figure out. And knowing the ending, you kind of wonder why Freddy does all of this. I mean, he is the bad guy, so why does he care that they kind of find out why this all happened to him? Like, why he was burned alive by the local town folks? I mean, he may have suffered vigilante justice instead of legal justice, but pardon my lack of sympathy for a child molester. I mean, OG Freddy may have been a child killer, but he doesn't hide from the fact that he is or was a monster. Our main girl plans to have a dream to visit our greaser in prison in the dream world and somehow got her boyfriend to be in there too. I don't know how she managed that, but if I could pick who was in my dreams, it would be Kate Beckinsale. Every night.
Showing!
But of course, her plan backfires, and Freddy plays with his food again, and he's just having a blasty blast. But unfortunately, she survives the night, so Freddy has got to try it another night. Our main couple go to see the greaser in jail just in time to find him hung. It's weird. It's like, sometimes Freddy cares to make his dream kills seem believable in the real world, and sometimes he doesn't. Also, he can sometimes move objects in the real world to help sell the suicide or whatever. Like, are there established rules on what Freddy can and can't do? Because clearly not everything is happening in the dream world. After the greaser's funeral, our main girl describes Freddy to her parents, and clearly they know something, but obviously they won't tell her about it, so the mom takes her to a sleep disorder clinic so she can have a dream while they do some tests on her. She wakes up with some gray hair, a few cuts, and Freddy's hat? And then we just jump to the next scene and she's back home? Why? Why weren't there more questions from the sleep doctors? You could argue that she could have scratched herself and that explains the cuts, but what about her fully grown hair that just turned gray within seconds? Or the fact that she pulled a hat out of her ass? I know it's just a common expression, but like, where else could it have been? But I guess we gotta move on. The mom and our girl hash it out, and the mom admits she knew Krueger and that he's dead. Our girl storms out and has a convo with Johnny Depp, and he says you gotta turn your back on nightmares and they lose their power. All the while she is reading a book on booby traps. Booby. And it's basically a foreshadowing scene with 2 takes, either a passive or active climax. She gets back home and her mom got nice and drunk and got bars installed on all the windows and decides to tell our girl the story of Fred Krueger. So he was a child killer who racked up a pretty impressive spree of 20 kids, and he was set to be sentenced, but He got off on a technicality and was set free. I know we don't know exactly what evidence they found, but it's hard to believe that he was just let go because someone fucked up on the search warrant paperwork. But if that could happen in real life, good news for serial killers. You might get off scot-free because of a technicality. But the parents tracked him down and set a boiler room on fire while he was in it. I know in the later movies it explains how Freddy got the power to do what he does, even though I haven't seen them, but the remake tries to play it off that it's possible that Freddy was innocent and he is doing a bunch of revenge killings. But no, in both, it's a fact that he's just a bad guy. And I guess super evil people are just really hard to kill. I mean, it misses out on the opportunity to have a complex villain. But I guess for slashers, the bar is meant to be low. I'm just saying they could have gone a different route. Who knows if that would have improved the character or franchise with the reboot. While the mom is telling the story of Freddy, she pulls out his bladed glove out of the basement furnace. Don't tell Dexter that you kept a trophy, lady, cause apparently that is a bad idea. Yeah, I remember when Dexter said that to Miguel in season 3, right as Miguel is about to take the ring of a guy Dexter helped him kill. Even though Dexter kept blood slides of his victims, gee, I wonder what's more incriminating, the ring of a dead person or their literal blood? I know it's a minor scene, but I have to mention the main girl's mom pulling a hidden bottle of vodka out from the closet. Reminds me of the house mom in Black Christmas who had half a dozen bottles of sherry hidden around the house. So Johnny falls asleep and he gets sucked into his bed by Freddy while he is crying out, "Mama." Even though I'm a horror head, I gotta say, when someone cries out for their mom to save them, it turns my stomach. Just any grown person reaching that level of desperation truly gets to me and just fills me with despair. It's a dope kill though. A lake's worth of blood shoots out from the hole in the bed and sticks to the ceiling. And good luck to the parents of this kid explaining all of this to the police, cause they're gonna need it. So our main girl has had enough, and she goes all Kevin McAllister and rigs the whole house up with traps that are more serious than Kevin's. Well, except this one. The plan is set and the traps are made, so she promptly goes to sleep. She fights with Freddy a little, and against all odds, she pulls Freddy into the real world. And he falls for every trap. Takes a hammer to the chest, a lamp explodes on him, she sets him on fire, and the mom has to be so drunk that she slipped into a literal coma for all of this. I guess that explains why she's been absent this whole time. But seriously, how could none of this be waking her up? The dad comes and helps with some backup, but in the few moments they were distracted, Krueger makes it upstairs and kills the mom in a very Tales from the Crypt kind of way that of course no one could logically explain away. It seems like Freddy is gone, but our main girl knows he isn't. She challenges Freddy's fear power and turns her back on him. He disappears in a vanquished kind of way, and she walks out of the room, and the night becomes day, and all of her friends are back and alive, and so is the mom. I guess the entire movie was a dream for them to be back. I mean, Inception ain't got shit on dream levels compared to this movie. Of course, all is not well, and all of the kids get driven away in a Freddy car, and the mom gets ripped through the small window in the door. I know a lot of people nowadays make fun of the scene because obviously it's a doll, but I remember seeing this scene as a kid, and I just walked in on that one scene and noped the hell out of there. And believe it or not, I still prefer the OG's ending compared to the remake's ending.
I'm just glad you're safe.
As a kid, I used to be terrified of these movies. Now I consume horror moments in all forms of media like they're M&Ms. And that's the whole movie. And to make this quick, the remake might have a bigger budget. It might have better shots, and a series of more seasoned actors, but the original still has it beat. Despite its flaws, the original Nightmare on Elm Street was original, and it took the horror to the next level. There is nothing wrong with remaking a story, especially if decades have passed. Some films have done it successfully, but the remake missed the mark. It copied too much instead of trying to stand on its own, and I guess that is the main lesson to learn from this remake that failed. The original Nightmare on Elm Street has aged very well, and I highly recommend it. And remember, I saw this movie for the first time with fresh eyes like a year or two ago. So, definitely gives it a little bit more credit. Now, I'm not saying the remake is complete garbage. On its own, it does have some merit. But if you're comparing the remake to the original, well, the remake is just kinda... Thanks for watching. Hit that like and subscribe, and stay spooky.